As per the last census, Bangalore had a decadal growth of over 48%. Across Indian cities, the rate of growth has been very rapid, and so the kind of growth that would have tested the best of political and managerial talent in an extremely empowered city mayor kind of systems that we see globally. Given that we do not have proper urban governance systems at city government, we do not have visionary leaders, and we lack urban administration skills, we have actually a perfect storm developing across our cities. Now, each of us have our own view in terms of what's the problem with the city. For someone, it could be the traffic. For someone else, it's about the roads or the water supply or the pedestrian walkway, you name it. Each of us have a different view as to what's the problem with this city. People in other cities have other views, but it's a finite set of problems that people are speaking about. The question really is, if we are to see change in our lifetime, we need to be able to find some positive disruption models in this space. Now, Gandhiji famously said, we should be the change, let us be the change that we wish to see, and we'll come back to that by the end of this talk. Sorry. Now, this is a chart, it's a fried egg. The choice of government as the yellow cholesterol thingy is purely by chance. So they are there, and the rest of the guys around them are the do-gooders who are trying to make cities better. So you typically will have resident welfare associations, NGOs, and some interested citizen. But if you look at this fried egg again, there is one major stakeholder that is missing out here, and that's business. You don't find business sufficiently involved on issues of urban governance. And let's therefore try to understand what is it that business is doing in this space. If you look at the common citizen, the new Maharajas are the people in government. So even if today if you see a member of parliament, a member of the legislative assembly or the corporator, people go saying fix the potholes, get me water supply. That's the nature of the request that the common citizen has got. But if you look at the behavior of business, they are in trade union mode in this space. Why trade union? So typically what does business tell of their trade union when trade union makes demands? They say, look, be responsible. You have no sense how bad the business is, and you're making these irresponsible demands and the like. Now shift to their behavior in the city space. What are they demanding of the powers that be? Make this place work, fix the infrastructure, allow me to work by making that happen. Without even making the effort to see whether we have the systems in place, do we have the people in place to make cities better. So they make no effort to understand what's the nature of problem in running a good city, but they demand saying fix this place. No different from the way of what they tell their own trade unions. Then there is a second aspect out here. Yes, it is true that we had a social contract. Business was supposed to be about creating jobs, was supposed to be in terms of paying taxes and maybe paying bribes. In return, they expected government to take care of defense, law and order, provisioning civic services. We can rave and rant for all that we want, but the reality is this contract between government, business is broken. So you can either keep raving and ranting about it or doing something in this particular space. Now this is a typical pie of a balance sheet that you will see, any balance sheet that you take of any business. But there is a line item which is here in this chart which you will not find in any balance sheet in India or in the world, which is the cost of a dysfunctional city. The key thing really here is, if a city worked better, then the top line of companies will be better, and consequently the bottom line will also be a lot better. I mean, productivity will be better, logistics, I could go on, but you get a sense that all the balance sheets, which are the profit and loss statements that business most care about, has a line item which is there every minute of their lives while they work in the city, but it is not reflected in the balance sheet. Which really brings me to the key point, which is that if actually a city worked better, businesses stand to gain. And they stand to gain monetarily. Their profits will be better if the city worked. So my case really here is that business needs to get involved for its own vested business interests, and not because it's a corporately socially responsible, nice thing to do. there is enough reason for them to get, so you take interest in terms of your manpower talent or your capital goods or your raw material processes. Figuring out how to fix a city needs to be another item on CEO's agenda, because if they do that properly, they end up making more money. Now, I'll go to some examples in terms of how business can get involved in this particular space. In fact, before I go here, as I've been trying to canvass this idea as to why business should get involved, it normally takes between 1 to 2 years of effort of making this case to get some sense of people, a group of people coming up from business saying, I get it, how can one get involved? But once they figure that out, the first reaction is, I agree with this model, but why should I do it? Let the other business do it. So invariably, they want somebody else to do it rather than themselves. When you cross that hurdle and then you get a group of people ready to do it collectively, then the next thing that is asked is, what is it that I can do in this space? How can I make a difference in what looks like a pretty dysfunctional space, as we spoke about, from governance to leadership to administrative challenges? So here are certain business engagement models, civil society engagement models that have actually happened on the ground. Model 1 is an advocacy model. So you can have a set of ideas like it was about the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. It is a $12 billion program for 63 cities that came about in 2005. And it came about because a certain set of people outside of government went and made the case that there's a case for making this a central government program. So that's really what I would call the advocacy role. The second model out here, this is an omelette in case it's not too clear. So here you beat the yolk and the white together. So this is a model. We had something called the Bangalore Agenda Task Force from 2000 to 2004. Here the political leadership of the day invites people from outside of government and say, look, can you work along with the system, alongside, and help make the city better? So this is a model of engagement where you are empowered by the system and you're working from within the system to make that happen. The third model, which is a thing that I've been evangelizing for the last 5-6 years, is the idea of City Connect. We are back to the fried egg. You're again working from the outside, but the civil society movement, which is working in this space, is strengthened by business joining it. Business is the new elite, and elites have responsibility, and they can't shy away from it. They can bring money to projects. They can bring volunteer energy to the table. And the idea of City Connect really is, can we collaborate between civil society and government? It of course assumes that government gives you a space to operate in this collaborative process. Can we collaborate together to make better cities rather than complaining that the place is broken, it cannot be fixed, and tomorrow is not going to get any better? So I'll now give you a sense of 4 examples of where this collaboration between civil society and government can actually make certain projects come alive. So the first of this really deals with the whole issue of outcomes. Everything that we really care for is about outcomes as we go about our lives. For example, if you take the transport space, we wish to move faster, and we would like to move faster with fewer casualties. So that's the kind of outcome that you seek. But everything about government is silos designed to withstand a nuclear attack, and silos that do not cooperate with each other to give you the outcome that you want. So that's the scenario. So if you take this space that you want to fix this problem that I spoke about, transport, you have about 8 to 10 bodies, from the corporation to the police to the public transport authority and the like. And in this scenario, if you talk to the public transport guy, his key metric, which he says is his success determinant, is that I added 1,500 buses last year. Is that a metric? Is that an outcome? So the concept of outcome thinking, by and large, does not exist in government. It's all about mega crore spending and project announcements. So one thing that happened during the Bangalore Agenda Task Force days is we created a platform called the BATF Summit. So the way this worked is every 6 months, you bring all the stakeholders, so the city corporation, the city police, the city development authority, the bus transport company, you bring them on a platform where the CEO gives a report in terms of what his agency has done and what his or her agency plans to do over the next 6 months. 6 months later, they or their successor come and report on what got done in a publicly transparent manner. This does two things. It improves the trust quotient with the citizens, and where you have interrelated projects, you have now a chance of integrating for better outcomes. So this is example one. The next one is related to property tax in Bangalore. So back in 2000, there was a kind of property tax where the revenue officer came and decided what property tax you needed to pay. By moving to a system where you removed the discretion in the hands of the officers and you created a uniform, transparent self-assessment scheme, which has a following basis: I would rather trust the citizen to tell the truth than to expect a revenue officer to uncover a lie. The results are there for you to see. The property tax in Bangalore has gone up 12x times in 12 years, with less than 20% of it being accounted by new construction. So it works. And again, this is another idea where people outside of government have worked with government to make something like this happen. The third really comes to our state of our urban infrastructure, which is roads. Now, we all give lip sympathy to pedestrians, saying that pedestrians are very important, but we go out and widen the roads for motorists. So what we do on the streets is the opposite of what we ought to be doing. So there is now this particular work in progress initiative which says, look, can we design roads where the pedestrian is truly at the heart of the planning process? They will have wider footpaths. They will cross at grade. The vehicles can go over grade or under grade. Followed by cyclists, followed by public transport, followed by the motorized vehicle, which will get uniform lanes, a hierarchy of road users on which you build this whole premise. Now, this has resulted in a very interesting experiment. We still have to see over the next 1.5 years how it plays out. But civil society, under the City Connect platform, which went out and spent money on designs, on ideation, and gave it to the government has agreed to spend taxpayers' money to make those roads a reality. So, as I mentioned, the jury is out and we might mess up the implementation, but if things go to plan, about 30 kilometers of roads in the city center will be designed the kind of roads that when we go overseas, we say, why can't we have these kind of roads in our city? The last of the example deals with waste. Now, this is of course, I believe there was a Nobel Prize laureate who said, just remember that at the end of the Stone Age, stones did not disappear. At the end of the Bronze Age, bronze did not disappear. So garbage is not going to disappear. So we're going to live with it, and the problem is going to get increasingly acute in the years to come. So right now, civil society as we speak and has been engaged over the last 3-4 months with this idea, we now realize that landfill as a model, it might work in the West, but in India it is non-sustainable. What we have had in Bangalore as Mandur, the kind of villagers protest, it's our Singur moment. So landfills are no longer sustainable. So you need to find decentralized solutions, segregation at waste at source and the like. And some of us from civil society, where government is seriously cooperating in this whole endeavor, this is going to take 3 to 5 years to fix. It's not an overnight fix. But we are working together on a roadmap which we are collectively saying that we will work towards this. And the heart of the idea really is that not in my backyard needs to be giving way to yes in my backyard. So NIMBY to YIMBY is the heart of what we are trying to do in this space. Now, essentially, the point that I'm making through all this case really is the following. Businesses, civil society, we really have two options. We can crib about our collective lot, or we can do something about it. My construct simply is that if you don't do something about it collaboratively, a better tomorrow is not going to happen in our cities. We will go to our collective graves with things getting worse. It's not going to get better. And therefore, there is actually merit to find alternate models of collaboration between government and civil society to make life a lot more livable for all of us. This will involve aspects of co-creation. There's a whole lot of value of cross-pollination. There are areas where government is strong. There are areas where the private sector is strong. And that cross-pollination could lead for better cities. Which really brings me to the end of this presentation. I started by saying that Gandhiji said, be the change you wish to see. Amartya Sen said, we are the argumentative Indian. I think more than the argumentative, we are the opinionated Indian. All of us have an opinion on what others should do. Change rarely begins with us. And therefore, a sign for our times is to become the change that you want others to be. So if each of us followed that, chances are that change will happen much faster than sitting and expecting the other guy to do it. Thank you.